just as maybe a single slide to start off with, I just want to remind everybody that out of the box with Footprint Service Core 12, you get all of this functionality within it. So you get kind of the ITIL processes, if you would. So, incident management, which of course everybody's doing, and most people are doing self-service. They may be doing service requests as just a request form, or you may be, depending on your maturity level, taking it more up to the service catalog approach. And I'll actually show you how to go in and create a service catalog item, because it's very easy to do with just a little bit of training there. But in following those ITIL processes, we also have problem management, which of course, as most people know, is really trying to figure out why we're getting series of similar incidents. You're looking for that known error. You're looking for that workaround. The links are there out of the box to have an incident automatically attached to a problem record. And that can be very useful. And then within that same vein, of course, sometimes in order to resolve whatever the issues were, some people are running formal change management, others are not. But obviously within change, you're really trying to document what are we changing, why are we changing it, when are the scheduled start and end dates for the change. Most importantly, you're getting the approvals done automatically through the workflow within Footprints to make sure that the change authorization is there going forward. You're identifying the assets or the CIs that are going to be impacted by that change, are all within the record. And last but not least, you're identifying the different tasks that have to be done in order to implement that change, and identifying the individuals and times that they're going to do that. So if you follow the ITIL process, an incident could get linked to a problem. Once the known error was determined in the problem, it could spawn off a change request. But those linkages would all be there, and you'd get your reporting metrics and those types of things. I am going to talk a little bit today about service level management, because that's another one that I don't see all customers doing. And it's very easy in 12 to set up, multiple different work targets, like response time versus resolution time, and any set of variables thereon. And that's pretty easy to do. We'll glimpse at that lightly. And then, of course, I think most people are, leveraging the knowledge management module there. Most of you know that mobility is now a no-charge item in version 12. There is, if most of you've been in the administrative tab, and you look at you got the agent form, you've got the customer form, but you've also got the agent mobile form, so you can control that real estate usage there. And of course, all of these processes come as pre-built business templates right out of the box, which is what we use as we enabled most of you. Of course, most of you have seen the reporting. I'm not going to really spend a lot of time there. I am going to spend some time on some advanced searching features. Chat we've talked about before. It's there if you want customers and agents to be able to, chat with one another. That's in there. And then, of course, the design itself of the platform. We still have the configurable workspaces, which has always been a feature within Footprints, allowing different groups to all leverage the same technology. HR, finance, security, DevOps, whatever the other functionalities might be. It's very easy to do that. Most of you have seen, but of course, we've now got the visual process design as far as those workflow elements go there. We do have the SOAP API for, getting other systems involved. And I am going to spend a little bit of time talking about the CMDB. So let's get out of the slide deck and let's go over here to my actual system that I have here. And one of the things I wanted to start off talking about was the ability to set up those work targets and all. So I'm going to go down to my service portfolio, which is where they are. And you'll see here at the top of my page, I've configured a response time for critical tickets. I've done a response time for critical resolutions. I likewise have done the same thing. I've got a response time for my urgent tickets, and of course the resolution time for my urgent tickets. And if you just kind of pull one of those up and look at it, you'll see it's a relatively simple design. You basically say, what's this rule called here? You come in here and go, well, if it's a critical ticket, it's what causes this particular work target to fire out there. You can set up some things about, in this case, how much time do they have. In this case, it's 20 minutes as opposed to 3 hours or whatever. So that's what we've defined. If we have a ticket that has a critical priority, which is usually generated by the impact and the urgency, this particular response will automatically kind of come in and apply there. So to show you an example of that, I'm going to go over and open up this incident that I have already in my system here, and you can see that we do have this classified as a critical incident. And of course, this designation came as an automatic calculation through a business rule based on what we picked here for the impact and what we picked for the urgency. That then determined into a business rule, we set the field value in a priority field to be critical. And then what happens once we did that and we save the ticket out is you can see down here under my section on SLA work targets that because that was a critical ticket, you remember when I was in the service portfolio, we said we had a resolution time, a response time of 20 minutes, and it said we had a resolution time of 2 hours. So those work targets automatically appeared in that form because in my incident business rules, I have enforced service level agreements turned on. And what happens is if you are creating a ticket, in this case an incident, but it could be against anything. If you're creating a ticket and it does have the service level rule turned on, it will then look to go see are there corresponding work targets related to, in this case I've got them tied to the criticality of the ticket. They will automatically go in there, and as you can see, we monitor those. So this is in a very old ticket. So obviously we breached both of those, but you would certainly want to know that. You would want to be able to report off of that. And of course that, you have that type of information when you come in and do that. The other thing one of the other things I wanted to touch on, of course, was the service catalog. And, that can be done through self-service. It can also be invoked from the agent's form when they're working on things. If the phone rings and what the person is requesting or asking for, if we have a service catalog item out there that approaches that, the agent can simply go up here to the templates and go, oh, the sales manager's giving me a call telling me he got approval from HR to bring on that new employee next week. So the only thing I need to do is capture in the form, who is the new employee going to be here. And once I do that and save that ticket, the whole purpose of a actionable service catalog is it will then automatically generate, in this case, all of the steps that have to be taken in order to bring on a new hire. Likewise, if I were requesting a phone, if there are 3 things that have to be done, it would automatically create those subtabs. So now that we said we're going to have that, if I pop down here to my related records here, you can see that it's going to automatically create these work orders, or subtasks as the nomenclature is in FootPrints, for someone to create an AD account for that new person, to get access to this particular application, to get the badges and the security things done, and to give director access level to something else. Again, these would obviously be your things that you would do. I happen to have 4 of them here. It may be 10 things that you do to bring on a service catalog. But again, it's very, very easy to kind of go in and do those types of things yourself. So to kind of give you an insight as to how you do that, under your administration tab, if you went to your workspace where you've got your service request, right? So I'll bring that up, and of course, in my form, I've got changes, incidents, service requests, problems, those types of things. If I click on my service request tab here, it'll bring up where I could go in and actually modify what the form looks like as I go through there. But you can see here are my service catalog items and all of the predefined tasks that would get evoked or attached automatically to one of those requests. So here's the one that we just did. It was a new hire request from the service catalog. And if we take a look at that guy, you can see that when I created this, what I did is I said, if that gets selected, there's certain fields on the form I want you to automatically fill out or set the value in. So as you can see on the form for the new hire, it's going to automatically add in the description there. It's going to, and in the description part of the form, it's going to say these are the things that we're going to do. This is the short description. Everybody knows on a FootPrints incident form or service request form, you got that short description. And of course, I automatically set the status to pending approval, since I have a workflow rule that says anytime we're doing a new hire, when I fill out the form, I'm going to still ask somebody to approve it before I actually start to flinging those out. So that's how I did that. But then here's the important part. I then went out and said, for this type of new hire request, what are the things I want to bring in automatically and have it create a subtask automatically for me. So I went in and just found the list of things that pertain to this type of new employee, which were those things I just showed you in that related records tab, right? Director access, SCCM access, physical security, and create the AD account. You know, if there were other things that needed to be in here, you know, because we've changed their policy on new hires, I could just go out here and say to get a particular link that I want up there. And again, it would be one of those subtasks, and then I could just go look at all of the subtasks that I've done out here. Maybe I say that, you know, in this case, we also need to provision a new laptop for the employees going forward when anybody comes on board. So once you build these individual little templates, you can then go into your form here, into your linked template queue to my, in this case, new hire request, and reuse things in various and sundry configurations of what you need to do. So again, not everybody is doing that. I see a lot of our customers, they actually bring up the actual service request form itself, but they don't necessarily go in and predefine all of those back-end actions that they might want to do. So I would encourage you to play around with that. If you need a little bit of help doing that, just give us a call. We'll be happy to kind of walk you through how that's done, or get you some more formal training. Because again, once you do that, of course, you can then leverage it from self-service. And from self-service, you normally present that. I'm logged in. I'm in my service request browser. You normally present that as kind of an icon view, if you would. So in my case, I've simulated I've got a human resources workspace, and I would go through the same thing. And of course, in this case, I'd be asking the hiring manager who was in here to, you know, tell me what you want to do in this particular one. So, nice way to do that. And again, you can break these out and categorize these in any number of ways. I've got access services, I've got hardware services, software services. So again, whatever makes sense in your environment there. And when you're over here in that workspace looking at those templates and all, again, for whichever one you may be in, that's where when you pull up one of those, you can, you know, see the template that you've got there, see what you're doing there, obviously invoke any kind of workflow processes or business rules that you have within there. So something I would encourage you to look at, and oh, by the way, in this particular one, if we save that off, just to show you, oh yeah, got my description field, sorry. Let's put in some more details here, make sure we're in compliance. Once we save that off, you remember it was in a pending approval flow. So as soon as the record is saved, it immediately goes into the visual workflow around approvals for a service request. And in this case, there are 3 different people who could approve it. I think, as you know, if they happen to be someone who's in FootPrints, they could come right into the form itself and approve it. And if they are not, if it's like a sales manager or a supervisor or something of that nature, and they really don't have a FootPrints license because they're really just an end user, we would send them an HTML formatted email, and they could approve it right from the email as they go through there. And just to maybe follow that totally through there, when you are looking at it, here was the workflow process around that service request business rule. And you can see this is where we, of course, invoked the nice new feature you had in 12 as to exactly what is the flow that comes in. Here's where your pending approval rule was. You talked about what happens if they approve it. You defined in here who were the approvers. If you remember when we looked at it in the form, that all gets identified. And then, of course, there are business rules that fire saying, hey, I need one of you to approve it, or I need all three of you to approve it, and here are the email notifications to go out. So that's where all of that is done, just to kind of come full circle there. So let me go back to my home page as an agent, and this is a feature I really don't see a lot of people using. I think most people use this thing like, okay, I'm looking for incidents related to a laptop, and boom, it'll pull you that list up pretty good. But one of the really neat features is if you go down to the advanced search option, you can really get fairly sophisticated and fairly deep in the way your searches want to work. So I said advanced search, and so I would give it a name, obviously. And then it would say, well, what do you want to search in? I.e., these would be your modules. Is it the incident module? Is it both incidents and service requests? Is it the CMDB? Is it your knowledge base? And I can pick one or more things. So let's say I wanted to search both incidents, and maybe I also wanted to go out and grab the service request record. So the point is, it doesn't have to be limited to a single module, if you want to call it that, within there. So that's, in my case, for simplicity's sake here, we want to look in the incident, and then we define, well, what is it that you're searching for? So I'm going to add one or more conditions on what I want this search to be. So as you can see here, I've got any number of fields. These are obviously the ones associated with the incident module. So first off, and this happens very often, is the first one they give you is maybe you want to look at the age of the incident. Make it very easy to do a search and pick a date range that you want it to come in on. They've already pre-configured that. But of course, any of these other fields that I might want to do, I want to know if this incident contains a particular asset record from their CMDB, or I want to come in here and look and know all the tickets that have the primary assignee as one of my teams or whatever. So you just pick the ones you want. So let's use that age of the ITS incident. And do we want it to be days or hours or minutes? So let's say we want to look back over the last 33 days, and we'll just leave the hours and the minutes blank. So that'll be my first condition that I may have. And you can see here, if I now wanted to add yet another condition. So for example, okay, I want the ITL incidents to be within the last 33 days, and then maybe my second condition is I want the priority to be high, and I want the category to be X. Any number of those you want to define, you could do it right here. So then it carries it further and says, okay, well, if you find something that matches that that time range I put in there, of all the fields within the incident form, what do you want to see as in the result return screen that you get out? Well, I want to know who the ticket is assigned to. I want to know what the description of that particular incident was, what the current status of that was. I may want to know the last time it was updated, see what kind of activity it's had out there. I might want to know the category of what the issue was. I might want to know who the customer was, so the first name and the last name of the customer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Pick all of the things that you want. Then I could pick an option here saying, are we ready to make this, and this is really neat, since this is a little bit more sophisticated search, if I hit this button right here, it says, hey, when you're over in the analytics reporting, if you just want to grab this predefined search and make that part of a report, we'll display it in the analytics module and let you be able to come out and do that. So at this point, I'm going to save it and I'm going to run it, and we'll see what we get. I hope I picked a date range where I've actually got some tickets. I do. Yeah, so here's a bunch of tickets I've opened in the last kind of 30 days here. And again, I can save this as a reusable search when I go over there. So again, you can get fairly sophisticated with this advanced search. Again, it's located up here where you normally do your searching. It's just you scroll all the way down to the bottom and hit your advanced search options there. So something else I wanted to touch on, and I'd say probably 60% of the users I see out there using this, and others are maybe planning it for phase 2. But that's to really leverage the fact that we've got a really nice CMDB in version 12, much more sophisticated, much more much easier to use than we had in the prior versions of Footprint. So you can see out here I've got lots of different types of things that I'm tracking in my system. I've got laptops, printers, smartphones, the typical things like monitors and docking stations, and I've got servers, and I've got cell phones. And oh, by the way, if the facilities group was using this, I'd probably have HVAC equipment and plumbing equipment and backup generators. The CMDB does not have to be related to just IT-oriented assets. So when you create these in your CMDB, which is done under your administration tab, CMDBs, for each one of these types of configuration items, right, laptop, smartphone, servers, HVAC equipment, you then define, well, what are the attributes that you want to track about that particular type of CI. So I'm just going to bring up, let's just bring up one of my things that I've got here. We'll just bring up a network device and show you that when I created the CI type called network device, I then said, here are the fields that we want to track about a network device. So I'm going to open up this one device, and it shows, we've got a unique name for this. It's currently active as opposed to, being in repair or something of that nature or retired. I can set the criticality because sometimes you want to adjust response times based on, is this a mission critical server or something of that nature. I'm capturing my asset tag. I'm capturing my serial number. That can be manually put into this form. That could be imported from a spreadsheet. Or one thing that a lot of their customers do is RightStar has an add-on product called ScanStar, which interactively goes out and captures things like location, barcode, asset tag, serial number tag, person assigned to, and automatically creates that entry in the CMDB for you or updates it in case you're moving it around or something of that nature. So I've got some details around that particular device. I've got some IT information around this network device, around, IP addresses. It's the network device, right? So I've got some things like that, which you probably wouldn't have that out there about, a smartphone or an application or the HVAC equipment, right? I'm not sure what I just did there. I've got the information in here about the financial information regarding this particular asset. So I wanted to know who is the primary owner of the asset, call center, the invoice number, the PO number, when did we put it into service, do we have support costs, is it leased, what's the warranty expiration date. So any and all of those, if you want to configure them, you can certainly do that as you go through there. And then the rest of it kind of happens almost automatically. If I assign one of those configuration items to an individual from the address book, I will then show it. And it may be I've got Alan is the primary is the primary financial owner of the asset, but maybe I'll also assign someone else as the primary support person. So the point here is that you can have more than one link here to contact information. I automatically will capture the history of things that happen to this asset, because anytime I'm in an incident or I'm in a request for change ticket, if I link this asset to that ticket saying, hey, somebody called in and said the router's not working, I created an incident, and therefore in 110.009 I identified that asset in the ticket, then it automatically started to build up this service history. And of course, the whole purpose of having a CMDB is to know what is it connected to or what things are it's connected by. So this was a router. I can see I've got two computers hanging off of this particular router, and that lets you start to make those types of associations of who is where and all. And one of your actions you have, and it doesn't make a lot of sense on this router, but one of the things you could do is you can do this impact analysis so that on a single pane of glass, I get everything about who are the people responsible for it, what things are connected to it or is it connected to, and I can see the complete history, and I can even see that in a visualization. So again, on a simple little router, this is not probably very meaningful, But think if this were your primary business application, you could see I've got 3 application servers talking to 2 other talking to a database cluster, and it looks like we've got 2 or 3 IIS front-end web servers talking to it. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to visually see that representation, especially if you're doing some of the more sophisticated functions like change management before that poor individual goes out to, apply that patch to that server? Wouldn't it be comforting to see, oh, I can see this is part of a cluster, so that's why they indicated I could do it during business hours, as opposed to they see it's a single server, they told me to go do it during business hours. I would want to question the legitimacy of that particular ability to go in and do that. Now, one other thing that I have, I kind of showed you from the service catalog, that onboarding template, right? We brought on that new hire David, and we had those 4 things that automatically got created. One of the things I also see some of the more mature customers do is they'll start to say, well, if we created an onboarding, maybe we should create some type of termination process. And we can do that, but one of the things I like to point out is if you do things correctly, if you go to your address book, let's say we're going to get rid of a particular person here. We're going to get rid of one of our folks we've got here. I could come in here and say, okay, James is going to be departing the company. I could pull up James's record, and I could see if I've associated things to him from my CMDB, I will be able to visually see that. So here's the complete ticket history of James that we've got here. But more importantly, James has 2 physical assets assigned to him. He also has a login to the employee benefits application, and he also has the new electronic building swipe cards to get into the gate. So very simply, you could assign a task to whomever it needed to be assigned to, that these are the things then that we need to make sure that we turn off, i.e. the 2 access. We need to recollect the laptop, recollect the desktop, gain the keys or the badges that come in there, and we need to turn off login information into this particular application. So when I said earlier that a configuration item isn't limited to just, physical things like laptops and desktops and servers, why not make access to each of your different types of application? Why not make that a configuration item in your CMDB and then link it, right? I know that, I could very easily say, show me everybody who has access as of today to the SAP application. And boom, you could produce that as a list of CIs that were associated with that particular value. So kind of a creative way to use your CMDB to a little greater extent than maybe you always try to do that. And again, all this stuff I'm talking about, excuse me, in that particular part of the CMDB, again, it all kind of comes in here and starts by going in here to your CMDB here and defining, well, what is it? What are the different types of things? So you see that I've configured CI types for desktops, for monitors, for laptops, for network device, for application access, for buildings, for air conditioning units, because I have a facilities workspace configured here. And then the things that you track in each one of these, again, will be different. It'll be geared towards, well, what do you logically normally want to know about a laptop versus what do you normally want to know about a location. Now, why would I have location in there? Again, sometimes people like to be able to say, show me all the assets in the Milwaukee office. Well, if one of the locations is a defined CI called the Milwaukee office, then I could tie all the assets in that office to Milwaukee, and boom, you could get that kind of report just very easily with a simple query, with the advanced query that I showed you, or, of course, running up under your service analytics and that type of thing. So anyway, I hope that's kind of been insightful, maybe showed you a couple of different and new things that you might be able to do as you go through there.